On the couch.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. Great lasting throughout all that series. I'm joined by Maxlar, who also outlasted. Good morning to you, man. How are you today?
I'm doing all right. And you? Just a bit sleepier?
Yeah, just a little bit, but that's okay. You guys had, holy moly, one hell of a long series. But it started with a 78-minute loss. How did you get your heads back on straight to then pull the reverse sweep?
I think it was just wise words from our coach to remind us how we should play. We were really passive and scared in the first game, and we were on a timer, and then because we were so passive, we couldn't use our composition properly. Second game, we went for easier composition and actually played way more aggressively, but it was still harder than it should have been.
Yeah, it definitely looked very difficult, but you guys really kind of got it back on in game number 3. We had a 78-minute game, we had a 55-minute game, but then you were able to close it out in 30. How did you guys do that at the very end of it all after a long series?
I think game 3 was mainly to do with the fact that we had the momentum. Like we were all happy that we won the second game, and also the fact that we were on a lot of comfort picks, and we snowballed the game decently correctly at one point. We made a few mistakes, which we'll go over, but yeah, it was just really snowball comp and well played to our coach, I guess.
Absolutely, and I guess that's the next question. What can you really look back on from that series and take away from it? What was your biggest takeaway?
To play more aggressive, and it kind of showed our weaknesses because 78-minute games are really long. They shouldn't normally happen, you know? So we're going to try to fix on our weaknesses and make sure that we address them. And like when we play Vitality on the upcoming Saturday, we will perform a lot better.
Well, I'm looking forward to seeing it. How confident do you feel going up against Vitality? In light of everything, you still got the win, so that's got to feel great.
I think we're less confident than we are. To be honest, we were not even. We were pretty down because we had, 0-7. This win has given us a boost, but it's still a reality check. Like us and Origen are last, so it was meant to be like this. Like one of us will be the victors. Vitality is a bit stronger than Origen based on the standings, but they've also shown their weaknesses today. So maybe we can go into the games confident, looking to exploit those weaknesses.
Now, it all comes down to it. It's important to have the confidence, if nothing else. You talked about comfort picks as well. One more thing I want to go back onto is you guys talked about you'll focus on the little mistakes you made and watching the tape and kind of going back over it. How are you going to prepare for this matchup against Vitality? You've got one extra day now.
I think it's just gonna, because there is a difference between how we play in scrims and how we play on stage. Like in scrims, there's more aggression, and more aggression is definitely good with a composite, like smart aggression, than there is with a composition that's early. But hopefully we can just sort this problem out. Like we know our weakness, so we just address it in game. Guys, let's not be scared. Let's actually be proactive and do something.
Step one and working on your way to fix it. Looking forward to seeing that matchup against Vitality. Congratulations one more time on your win, Maxlar. All right, with that, we are all wrapped up and done. We're going to go ahead and send it to the Late Late Show, or as we call it, the post-game lobby.
Thank you very much, Pyra, and welcome to the post-game lobby, where I'm with Stress and Officio to take a look back at tonight's games. Gentlemen, thoughts on the day overall before we proceed any further? Or have you shared too many thoughts about today's games today?
It's been a long day, safe to say.
Yeah.
I think we got close games. We kind of got what we expected. I feel like some teams are very even, close in level, where there's some highlights, but there's some negatives as well. And it made the games exciting because of what's on the line, and because none of these teams were just way better than the other ones. So they were very back and forth games. But obviously we had the remake, we had the 75-minute long game as well. So we had a bit of everything.
We're getting a little loopy towards the end of the day here. Yeah, definitely. But I want to look back on that last game of the series, specifically Roccat versus Origen. We heard Maxlar coming in talking about, we need to focus on being more aggressive. I think that's what we wanted to see. Do you feel like that carried through in the series from what we saw from them?
Game 2 and 3.
Yeah, not game 1.
Game 1 was... Oh my God.
That's aggression then.
They didn't get a kill in 49 minutes.
We were watching too.
I've never seen that before.
I know you were there. I know you were there.
I've never seen that before.
I admire your ability to talk about League of Legends for 49 minutes without a kill. I find that very impressive.
I've just never seen that. Like that Ari, Lee Sin.
like the two of them
Were you
together.
also yelling? Just like,
yeah, we
use ulti, someone, you know, catch someone.
just
No?
I was just saying like just flash charm people for like just anything
do
you
it.
can
That
do.
was our
Just get
post-game
some-
analyst
literally
desk
just do
segment.
it.
So here, flash charm. Next clip stresses like, so here, maybe flash charm. I don't know if you've noticed it. It's the D key
We should have
and
done
the
that
E
one.
key also. Did not see that level of aggression, of course. Interesting game day overall. These teams will have a chance to play it out against each other later in the week, but let's take a chance now to look at the rest of this week's schedule, or rather the standings, not the rest of this week's schedule, after today, as they have been kind of greatly affected.
That's another mistake, Dracos. We're getting shocks back tomorrow, aren't we?
Oh, what? When are we starting Caster Fight League, Martin?
Oh, you want to
I don't want to be here for that one. I'll lose out heavily on that one. But a team that didn't lose out from today's results is Misfits. They actually locked a playoff bye as a result, or a playoff, not a bye, excuse me. Locked a playoff spot as a result of today's game. So over in Group A, kind of locks that group. G2, they're already there. Misfits, they're already there. Group B, not quite the same. There's still a little bit of turmoil over in the other group.
And I'm glad we're talking about teams in the same tier as the ones we saw today. Vitality got another win. Very important. I tried to make it a segment of going like G2 and Vitality were the same, but I kind of failed it. So stop looking at me. Stop looking at me and move on. Anyway, Vitality got a win. They got a buffer now. That's great.
Fantastic, Martin. Super great insight. Absolutely lovely. Well, earlier today, we asked you to pick up your tweeting machines, wonderful, and tell us who out of the bottom 4 teams is going to stay safe in the LCS and why. Ryan tweeted that he wanted it to be Origen because he wanted to see Nahyun get that win one.
He got it.
He got it. He got that win today. Congratulations to Nahyun. Wasn't able to get the series end. A little grim, but you got to imagine that this feels pretty good for the guy overall.
Yeah, he was so happy in that moment as well.
Yeah.
You could see it. So I'm happy that Origen got that win. I think if they'd have had the reverse perfect split, I think that would have been like just
Reverse
crippling. I don't know what to. It's gone midnight. Like,
What's the opposite of perfect?
In the case of a split, losing every game?
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, so you say perfect split, what would be the opposite if you lose it?
Ah.
I mean, it depends on whether you're wanting an unblemished record, right?
Okay.
It could be perfect in the worst of circumstances. But no, actually, I like Origen. They have made improvements, and we're still. I mean, it's week 7 now. Promotion tournament is taking place way in the future. You kind of have to look at promotion tournaments still for Origen, and they are getting better slowly. And the thing is, now is not the time to peak for them now that they've lost this game. The time to peak for them now is like promotion tournament. Make sure you've got everything in line for that, because there's some stiff competition coming up. We've got, of course, the ECS top 4. Everyone's talking about Schalke. Everyone's talking about PSG. Those 2 teams still have to qualify through Fnatic Academy, who added amazing. They've got Kickers and Misfits Academy, who've looked strong in their own right. But I think the thing that you can say is, at least on the EU Challenger level, the majority of the teams that are in the top 4 of EUCS have been more active on the map than the bottom 4 LCS teams, especially looking at Origen and Roccat. Like, Schalke and PSG are not afraid to make plays early.
And if we look at like the last 2 years, it's been rare that we've seen a lot of EUCS teams kind of qualify into LCS. It's been like 1 every single time, but they've been very impactful every time. Like, it all started with Origen coming in after their split, obviously went to Worlds. You can take Misfits as an example from last split, who qualified in, are now one of the best teams in Europe. So we have a really good track record of getting at least 1 top EUCS team into the league, and they become like a pretty dominant force. Looking at some of these organizations down the bottom from the LCS, like you look at Giants, you look at Roccat, even Origen now, they've been down in this promotion area for not just this split, but also last split, you know, some splits ago from some of these organizations. So
here's the things. I feel like we thought Origen and Roccat to a certain degree last split were kind of doomed to fall out as well. And then we saw...
Right.
But this was, of course, before the playoffs, because when we saw the Challenger playoffs, a lot of these Challenger teams fell apart.
Yeah.
Were not showing us the same performances in the regular season. And I want to know from you, Stretch, since you have a lot more experience with these guys, how do these teams compare to the last batch? Are these guys looking more consistent, looking more stronger, or are we still risking looking through that kind of that Challenger lens and assuming that teams are stronger than they are?
I think specifically Schalke have looked stronger than the entire pack. They've just come off 10-0 for the entire regular split, so it's been in the last week, they had a few shaky patches where you can look at it and say, okay, even at a challenger level, they are making mistakes. But when you look at their play, the way that they, play around their strengths, make early plays, and actually have a lot of a game around vision control, objective control, more so than most challenger teams. I think that is where a team like Roccat, if they're playing the slow style like from game 1 today, it's just going to be too much for Roccat to handle from Schalke.
I think also individual skill has to be highlighted on this team. Like the lineup, Lulex is playing really well at the moment after he's kind of come back into the scene. Vander, of course, is way too good of a support to sit in EUCS right now. There's a lot of LCS teams who could use a support like him. Selfie's playing well as well. So a lot of these guys are really standing out. And they are able to match/beat some of the LCS players, current LCS players from the bottom teams, for sure. And because there's a lot of experience on the lineup, like the guys who've been here before, except for like Upset as the only one who doesn't really have a ton of experience, it should make Schalke like a favorite to obviously qualify for promotion tournament and be a favorite in it as well. But yes, we have seen teams crumble on stage when it really matters. You're playing for basically a spot in the LCS, a job as well. But I think overall they look really good. I also know from talking to the players, they practice a lot against like the top EU teams and they get like good scrims. So it's not just playing against EUCS, they get practice against LCS guys.
Well, who they're playing up against hasn't quite been decided yet. So let's take a chance to look at the rest of the week schedule because we do still have a lot of chances, a lot of opportunities for these bottom teams to kind of change their fate, to get out of this terrifying zone to be in. We see tomorrow, of course, G2 versus Splice, Fnatic versus UL. Good games to see. Personally, I'm excited for Misfits versus H2K, but I feel like the important games to look at are once again Giants versus OG and Roccat versus Vitality.
Yeah, definitely still important games. The bottom 4 playing off against each other. Interesting you mentioned Fnatic Unicorns. Those games are always nuts. We'll see whether it's anything on the second series from today. But it's not over for Roccat, for Origen. I mean, Roccat obviously picking up a win. For teams like Vitality and Giants, when you compare them against a lot of the challenger teams, I actually think Giants and Vitality, for the most part, are favored. I mean, Giants, that second game was looking so clean.
Yeah, they played really well.
The first iteration was basically a 1 game. So for Giants and Vitality, a little bit more improvement, a little bit more of the same, and I think they should be safe. Roccat and Origen, that's where you got to start being a little worried.
Also, again, we see Giants keep the lineup, we see Roccat keep the lineup. Now, Roccat picked up a win against Origen, looked much, much better in the third game, where the first 2 were very even. So we have to look at like Origen and say, you made changes. Okay, you realized something was wrong. Was it too late the changes came in? Like, Pekka joins in, obviously, last week. He's here again this week. We know they've already signed the new jungler as well. They already announced it. He announced it on Twitter, Syncroft from the LVP, who I'm pretty excited to see what he can do for Origen coming in. So they're making changes now, but you needed these guys to be there from the start to kind of get enough practice and synergy together. So it's still kind of biting them that they're not peaking now when they're playing the other bottom teams, because losing here to Roccat is really, really bad for them. And Giants have looked stronger than Roccat. So that's Sunday's series. If Origen loses again, then I think it's lights out. I don't think they will have enough games left they can win to kind of catch Vitality.
Yep.
I mean, lights up, we look at the Challenger Series, maybe they drop to Misfits. We know that they're the powerhouse team, but the other teams in the Challenger Series, who's going to take down Origen if they have Syncroft and it is improvement, if they have XPeke in the lineup and they're just fighting to survive, what other teams can take them down?
Well, there are some good storylines there. You've got Fnatic Academy with Amazing, who you obviously used to play on Origen.
Very vocal about his frustrations there.
That's a potential high matchup that I think Fnatic Academy, now that they've got Amazing and Kickers, I think that's the building block. And then PSG have the strongest early game of any of the Challenger Series teams. But they've faltered in major points in the game, whether it's Pilot or Blunt getting caught out or just mismanaging a Baron play. They should theoretically have drawn even with Schalke, but threw that game away. So I now am interested to see how PSG play against Fnatic Academy. It's Yellow Stars team versus Fnatic and their Academy team. Some good storylines coming into the Challenger playoffs, but I mean, I can't wait. I
like how all of our storylines are from former Fnatic members, by the way. We've got
There's so many of them, man.
leaves to make a team. His enemy is now back on Fnatic. You got all these rivalries. They're coming in.
And they got so many new players now who maybe at some point are going to be in different teams. And everything at some point in Europe ties back to Fnatic. One way or the other, it's just going to tie back to Fnatic.
It's the beginning. It's the end. Well, this is the end for us. It's time for us to log off the client for now. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you tomorrow as our coverage of the EU LCS 2017 Spring Split continues. I'm out of breath. Good night, everyone. Thank you for joining us.